Servus Männer, it's Red Pill Germany again. I just read in the news that Germany, or the German taxpayer, I should say, will pay 10 million euros for disaster aid in Lebanon. You know, probably what happened there in the harbor of Beirut. And yeah, so Germans have to pay again, they have to help. Now, today I want to make a couple of points about not this event in particular, but also a little bit. I will comment on the particular situation in that country. But generally, Germans or the German government, the German politicians that are elected by the German people, they have the habit of just looking for anything that goes wrong on the planet and then swooping in with their giant German tax checkbook, and they want to save the day and basically pay other nations to like us better or something. It's like this timid guy or this loser guy in high school that wants to buy friends, by inviting them and stuff like that. He can't get friends, and then he just thinks he can pay for a bunch of stuff for other people, and then they would somehow like him. That is how Germany is acting in the world, and I think it is quite sickening, to be honest. I don't like that. And I don't say that because I'm cheap. I'm not greedy or something. It's not like if I were convinced that these 10 million euros were well spent there, that they would help the people there, or that they would better the situation of the people there, I would probably be okay with it. Not really, though, because I don't think ultimately it's our responsibility. But I would be okay. But I think it actually hurts the people in these countries long term. I think it hurts us. It hurts the um, relationships that we have to other countries, and it actually hurts the people in those countries. And in this video, I want to convince you of that. So I want to start with the weakest argument and then go to more fundamental arguments, more profound ones, more general ones in the end. So you should listen until the end. Okay, so first and foremost, and that's the weakest argument, I think we're not really responsible. So this thing, it seems it's very probable that it was just an accident, and they just shouldn't have stored thousands of tons of NH4NO3. I can say the chemical formula. I cannot say the actual name of this fertilizer, probably on YouTube, but be that as it may. So the dangerous thing about this salt that is used as a fertilizer is that it is a solid, of course, and it doesn't need oxygen to react, really. So it has all the components that it needs internally, and all the products of this dynamic exothermic reaction are in the gas phase. So that means there is an enormous shock wave that can be produced with that material. It's not flammable that easily, but once once it is, you probably all saw the video. Okay. So that's stupidity. Okay, it's really stupid to store a lot of that stuff in one place. Okay, and then mishandling it or having an ignition source nearby or something. That's just stupid. Okay, that's stupid. Um, and that's probably what it was. And I don't think we are responsible for this. And I think the neighboring countries or some rich Arab country, they're more in first line of response here. I mean, if they want to donate, they should do that. Germany or Europe, we really have no business helping them in this instance here. Okay, and then the second argument that I want to make is maybe a petty one, but I think if it were the other way around, and you might argue that this day is not very near or it will never happen, but if something happened in Europe, if something happened in Germany, and these countries were well off or rich, do you think they would help us? No, no, because they hate us, okay? So there is no reciprocity here. They hate us. And I know that because I know a lot of people from that country. They are in Germany. I studied with them. Well, they're not my best friends, but I am familiar with their family structures and their business practices, and I know that firsthand. And I can just say they don't respect us, they hate us, and they want all the bad things in the world to happen to us. And they would not help us, they would laugh about us, and what's worse, they would try to profit from it. They would try to hurt us even further. When we're down, they would kick us. When we're on the ground, they would kick us. That is their mentality. This is their attitude towards Europeans and Germans. They hate us. And this is why I think we shouldn't help them. Quite simply put. Okay, then the third and maybe most important argument is actually, and this is a longer one, I think that us helping these countries all the time, and I mean in general, it doesn't help them, it doesn't help us. I think because when you look at this country in particular, for example, is a good example because it is an oppressive regime. It is very corrupt. It is criminal. They do horrible things there. They oppress their own people. And if you have a disaster like that, a government cannot ignore it. They would have to give medical attention to the people. They would have to rebuild the infrastructure. They would have to do stuff, clean up at least. But when we swoop in and we take care of their daily business, of their bread and butter, and we constantly, this is not a once in a blue moon thing. We, not periodically, strictly speaking, in a signal processing sense, but relatively regularly, we give money for all sorts of reasons to these countries, and they can already bank on that fact. They can already factor that into their budget, that, oh yeah, Germany will give us probably in the next 5 years that much, or if not Germany, then Canada or Sweden or whatever, right? And that means that their government doesn't have to take care of these things with their own tax money. And that means they can spend more of the money they have on frivolous or nefarious things. And the idea that these countries don't have any money is ridiculous. These are countries in a strategically important region. A lot of trade goes through that area. They have large cities. They have a lot of commerce. Of course, they have money. Yeah, they might not be as rich as Germans, but of course they have money. They can take care of themselves. They don't need us. It is just that if they act like they're all poor and we help them, then they can, for example, spend much money on the means, on the resources in order to oppress their own people. Do you think you can oppress a people just by, snapping your finger? Do you think this is for free? No. Like if you study Eastern Germany, for example, or the GDR, the DDR, the German Democratic Republic, if you study that, how many resources went into monitoring the people, like surveillance, like reading all the mail, having people monitored all day long and following them, wiretapping their phone lines, their apartments. This is expensive, and you need to buy the loyalty and the hard labor of the people who do all this oppressing and enforcing and monitoring. And these people, they could be farmers, they could be factory workers, they could be engineers, they could be poets, they could be musicians, they could be authors, they could be all sorts of stuff, all sorts of good, productive, nice things. But instead, they are basically standing with a loaded gun behind honorable citizens, making sure that they're not stepping out of line, or going through their mail correspondence, checking if they plot against the government or if they're subversive in some way. That's kind of ridiculous. I mean, think about it. All the resources that are spent in order to oppress their own people, all these resources, all this time, all this labor could be spent on something worthwhile. And what is enabling? Who is enabling them? Of course, Germany isn't doing that all by itself, but it is an important part, because whenever something happens in the world, the second something happens, a German politician swoops in, flexing the German taxpayer muscle with a huge black, red, golden checkbook, and they want to buy friends basically, and then it's all over the news. Oh, Angela Merkel visited this guy, the German minister for the economy, the German minister for foreign aid, the German minister for foreign affairs. He met personally, and we guaranteed that we will pay 1 billion euros, 100 million, I don't know. This is always the headline, this is always the story in the news, and I'm sick of it, because it doesn't make them like us. It creates entitlement. Because once we don't pay anymore, then the story will be, well, usually the Germans paid for this. What's wrong with them? Do they not like us anymore now? What's wrong with those Germans? Yeah, it creates entitlement, and it enables these governments to oppress their people and to spend money on ridiculous things. Maybe a new BMW, which is also good for Germans actually, or maybe a new yacht, or maybe I don't know, something extravagant for the capricious wife, I don't know, or for a mistress. But instead of spending their tax money that they do have on things that actually benefit the country, and even if they don't, look at it. I mean, what would happen if the government there stubbornly would refuse to help their own people while such a disaster struck, right? It would create a lot of anger among the population there, and maybe they would topple their own government. And instead of nation building, like the coalition of the willing did in Iraq, and it worked oh so well, maybe the people in those countries could take care of their oppressive, tyrannical, authoritarian rulers by themselves for a change. And this is also what Germany does with these payments. They absolutely stabilize these oppressive regimes. They make sure that nothing changes. And then you might argue, oh, but the article reads that the Germans will make sure that this money will go directly to the people in need and not through the government. Yeah, right. As if you could control for that in these countries. And even if you do, didn't you listen to my argument that I just made? Even if you help the people in need in those countries, it stabilizes the government, because then they don't have to spend the money on that, and they can spend the money, as I just said, on frivolous stuff or on oppressing their people, right? They can buy some weapons, they can hire new secret police, whatever, right? So to sum up, yeah, I'm really sick and tired of Germany always thinking they should help people on the other side of the planet or in our. We're not responsible for these people. I mean, if something happened in Italy, yeah, sure, help them. If something happened in Denmark, sure, help them. But not because they need it. It's a little gift among friends. Or even if it's Japan, or Canada, it's a friendly nation. They're not our neighbors, but still they're good friends. And little gifts are good for friendship, right? But that's a totally different story then, right? And there would be reciprocity. The Japanese would probably also help us. The Canadians, the Danes would also help us. But with these countries, countries that are ruled by these mafia clans, totally different story. And I think I made my arguments very clear by now. Let me know what your country does and what you think about what I just said in the comments down below. Take care. Servus, Kameraden.